Over 2 nights, I spent hours listening to the woman in room 17. I heard her television through the wall. I heard her shower turn on. I heard her walking around. And more than once, I heard her humming the same little piece of a song over and over. The first night, I got irritated and knocked twice on the wall. Everything stopped. Then she knocked back. Twice. The next morning, I walked outside and looked at the doors. 14, 15, 16. Mine. 18. There was no room 17. There wasn't an empty space where it should have been. Room 16 was directly beside room 18, one wall between them. And according to the man who ran the motel, room 17 had never existed. I should probably tell you something else before I go any further. I answer every phone call now. Spam, unknown numbers, wrong numbers. Calls at 2 a.m. If my phone rings, I pick up before it can ring a second time. And I am never the person who hangs up first. There's a reason for that. This was in the spring, in eastern New Mexico. At the time, I was traveling constantly for work. I install point-of-sale systems, card readers, register software, that kind of thing. Mostly gas stations and truck stops. It's good work if you don't mind being alone. Back then, I didn't. That was sort of the point. I'd finished a job late outside Santa Rosa and had another one the following afternoon. There were several hours of driving between them, so around midnight, I pulled off the highway when I saw a motel sign. There wasn't anything unusual about the decision. I was tired. There was a bed. That was enough. The place was called the Silver Spur Motor Lodge. It was one of those old single-story places where every door opens directly onto the parking lot. Maybe 20 rooms altogether. 3 other cars were parked outside, all near the far end. The man at the desk was named Ray. Older guy. Glasses pushed up on his head. Basketball game playing behind him with the volume almost all the way down. He gave me room 16 because it was close to the office. $42. Actual metal key on an old plastic tag with a 16 stamped into it. The room was nothing special. It smelled like carpet cleaner. There was a picture of a desert mesa bolted above the bed and an old air conditioner under the window. When I turned it on, it clicked twice before it started. Click, click, then this low, grinding hum. I remember thinking our air conditioner did that when I was a kid. The one in my bedroom. You'd turn it on and count to 2. That thought lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then I forgot about it. I fell asleep with my shoes on. Sometime after 2, a television woke me up. Not loud. Just loud enough that I could hear voices through the wall to my left. I couldn't understand the words, but every once in a while there was canned laughter. Then the shower started. Old pipes. You hear everything in places like that. A knock inside the wall, then water rushing through it. I heard footsteps. A suitcase zipper. Someone moving things around. Completely ordinary sounds. Whoever was next door had probably arrived late and was getting ready for bed. Then the woman started humming. Quietly. Not like she was singing for somebody. More like she didn't realize she was doing it. And she wasn't humming a whole song. Just one part. The middle. A few notes where the melody lifted. She'd hum them, stop, then start from the same place again. My mother used to do exactly that. She'd stand at the kitchen sink washing dishes and hum the middle of songs. Never the beginning, never the words. I asked her once what one of the songs was. She said she had no idea. She just had that little piece stuck in her head for years. So I lay there, listening to this stranger hum, and for a few seconds, it made me feel like I was 9 years old again. Then it made me angry, because it was after 2 a.m, and I had to drive the next day. I hit the wall twice with the side of my fist. Bang, bang. The humming stopped. So did the television. And the shower. All at once. I didn't think about that until later. Water doesn't normally stop like that. Old plumbing has a tail to it. You shut the faucet and you still hear the pipes settling. This didn't. Everything just stopped. Then something on the other side knocked back. Twice. Same rhythm, same spacing, almost the same force. Like an echo that had taken too long to return. And I laughed. Actually laughed. I remember saying, "Okay, fair enough." I thought I'd annoyed somebody, and they were being a jerk back. That explanation was good enough for me. I went back to sleep. That bothers me now. How easy it was. In the morning, I put my bag in the car. That's when I noticed the numbers. 14, 15, 16, 18. I stopped, looked again. 16 and 18 were side by side. There wasn't another door between them. There wasn't enough space for another room. I walked into the office. Ray was putting a rubber band around a stack of receipts. I asked him if there was a room 17. He barely looked up. No. I asked what happened to it. He said nothing happened to it. There had never been one. Apparently, the original owner had skipped 17 when the motel was built, the way some hotels skip 13. Ray had answered the question so many times that it wasn't even interesting to him anymore. Behind him was a pegboard where they kept the room keys. Every hook had a little number underneath it. Almost every hook. Near the middle was one empty hook with no number beneath it. I stared at it for a second, then told myself a missing label was a missing label. Ray asked if there had been noise. I said, "A little," from down the hall. That's something I still do when I tell this story. I say hall. There was no hall. The doors opened onto the parking lot. I've told this story enough times that I should stop making that mistake. I don't. My head keeps putting a hallway there. Maybe because a hallway is somewhere a room can hide. A parking lot isn't. Ray checked his computer. Room 18 had been empty all week. Room 15 had been occupied by a couple who checked out around 6 that morning. So the wall I'd knocked on had nothing occupied behind it. I did what I think most people would do. I explained it away. I was exhausted. Maybe I'd been half asleep. Maybe the sound had traveled through the building. That's real. Cheap motel walls do strange things with noise. I've slept in hundreds of places like that. A television 4 rooms away can sound like it's sitting beside your bed. So I left. I drove to the next job, installed 2 card readers at a truck stop, ate a sandwich in my car and finished late. And that night, I drove back to the Silver Spur. I told myself it was because the room was cheap. I don't know if that's true. Ray gave me 16 again. Same key, same plastic tag. That night I woke at 2:40. The television was playing through the wall to my left. Again. This time I got up immediately. I put on my jeans and walked outside barefoot. The concrete was still warm. The interstate was behind me. I could hear trucks on it. The office was dark, except for a little light over the desk. And past my room was a door, brass numbers, 17. It was open about 8 inches. Light came through the gap. I stood there for a while. Then I said, "Hello?" Nothing. I pushed the door open and looked into my childhood bedroom. Not a room that reminded me of it. My bedroom. The carpet had the burn mark beside the closet from when my brother-in-law dropped a cigarette while helping us move a dresser. The twin bed was pushed against the wall. I used to lie there with my feet against the paint, which my mother hated. My old baseball trophy was on the shelf.
The little player had broken off at the ankles years before. Under the window was the air conditioner, a strip of duct tape on the corner of the grill.
I stood there looking at it. Then it clicked. Once, twice, and started. Behind me, inside room 16, my motel air conditioner clicked twice and started about half a second later. For a few seconds, both units ran together, almost the same sound, not quite synchronized. I didn't go inside. And it wasn't because I suddenly had good judgment. I stayed outside because I found something wrong. There was a telephone beside the bed, beige, push buttons, coiled cord. I knew immediately that it didn't belong there. I'd never had a telephone in my bedroom. My mother wouldn't allow it. She used to say putting a phone in a kid's bedroom was how kids got secrets. And I remember standing barefoot in that parking lot, staring into an impossible copy of my childhood bedroom, and feeling relieved.
Because they'd gotten something wrong. That's what I thought. They got it wrong. And if the room was wrong, then the room was fake. If it was fake, I could dismiss it. That telephone became the most comforting thing I had seen all night. I went back into 16, locked the door, and put a chair under the handle. Around 4 a.m, the shower started through the wall. Later, the humming came back. Same few notes. I sat awake until sunrise. When I stepped outside, 17 was gone. 16, 18, nothing between them. I checked out and drove east, 41 miles. I know because I checked later. 41 miles away, I got off the highway. I sat at the bottom of the exit ramp with my blinker clicking, and I turned around. The car was fine. Nothing stopped me from leaving.
Nothing called me back. I went back because of something I'd seen in the bedroom. There had been a stack of index cards in the corner of my old desk. My mother's handwriting was on them. She'd been dead 9 years. I hadn't seen her handwriting in almost as long. I wanted to see it again, that's all. If you've lost someone, you probably understand how stupid that sounds, and how completely reasonable it felt. When I reached the motel, I didn't wait until night. I sat in the parking lot and called my sister Rachel. She was at work. I tried to make the question sound casual. Did I have a phone in my bedroom growing up? She said, yeah? I actually laughed. I told her no. Mom never allowed phones in bedrooms. Rachel went quiet for a second. Then she said, Danny, that's backwards. I didn't say anything. She said Mom had put the second line in my room specifically because I always answered. I was the kid who picked up the phone. Then Rachel laughed a little. She said, don't you remember what Mom used to say about you? I did. I remembered before she said it. My son catches it on the first ring. We don't let it ring twice. That was one of my mother's rules. If the phone rang, somebody answered. Because somebody might need something. We don't let it ring twice. I hadn't forgotten the rule. I'd forgotten the phone. I'd kept one and somehow thrown away the other. That night, room 17 appeared before midnight. The door was already open. There was no bedroom inside this time. It was my mother's kitchen. Yellow table, fake brick linoleum, sink beneath the window, the little dish beside the faucet where she kept the sponge. Same brand of dish soap she always bought. I could smell it. The faucet was running. Nobody was standing there. I looked for the mistake. By then, that was what I needed. Find the mistake. Prove the room couldn't get everything right. It took me a minute. Then I saw it. 5 chairs. We had 4. I knew that. Mom, Rachel, me, and Dad's chair, which stayed empty after he left,
and eventually became the place where Mom stacked the mail. 4. I could picture all 4. But the kitchen in room 17 had 5. The 5th chair wasn't at the table. It was against the wall, under a telephone. Long cord hanging down almost to the floor. I called Rachel.
She answered, sounding worried, because I almost never called her twice in one day. I said, "How many chairs were at Mom's kitchen table?" 5. No pause, no thinking, just 5. I told her there were 4. She said, "There were 4 at the table." Then she reminded me. There had been another chair by the telephone. My chair. Apparently I'd sit there taking messages for everybody. I even kept a notepad beside the phone. Rachel said they used to make fun of me because I took it so seriously. While she was telling me this, I was looking at the notepad. It was sitting beneath the phone inside room 17. There was handwriting on the top page. Rachel asked where I was. I told her I'd call back. Then I hung up. I was the one who ended the call. I can't do that anymore. A second later, I realized something else. I couldn't hear the highway. Until then, there had been trucks passing every minute or two. Now there was nothing. Not quiet traffic. Nothing. I looked through the kitchen window. Our kitchen window had looked onto a fence and the side of our neighbor's garage. This window looked out onto the Silver Spur parking lot. My car was sitting there. But beyond the parking lot, where the interstate should have been, there was only darkness. No headlights, no road, no sound. I backed away and closed the door. I went into 16. Sometime before morning, I heard a telephone through the wall. Not ringing, just the small plastic click of someone hanging up. The next afternoon, Ray called me into the office. He said the computer had accidentally given me a returning guest discount. I told him I'd never stayed there before that week. He turned the monitor toward me. My name was there. Same name, same spelling. And beside it was a date from 9 years earlier. Ray wasn't frightened. He wasn't mysterious about it. He said the software was old and did weird things. He offered to remove the discount. I told him to leave it. I still had the room 16 key in my hand. I remember rolling the plastic tag between my fingers while I stared at the date. Then, somewhere outside the office, the ice machine dropped a tray. That grinding sound. Then the hard clatter of ice. And suddenly I knew I'd heard it before. Not earlier that week, before that. The motel office seemed to get smaller around me. My mother died 9 years earlier, Tuesday morning in May, a little before 6. Whenever I've talked about it, I've always said the same thing. She died early, before anybody could get there. That's the sentence I've used for 9 years. At funerals, at Thanksgiving, with girlfriends, with friends, before anybody could get there. And whenever I pictured that morning, I pictured myself at home in Columbus, asleep, Rachel calling, me waking up, me trying to find a flight, but with that plastic key tag in my hand and the ice machine still settling outside, another picture came back. A highway at night, a motel sign, a room I never saw in daylight. I hadn't been in Columbus. I'd already been driving to see my mother. I'd left 2 days earlier. That night, I had gotten tired. I'd pulled off the highway and stayed at a motel for a few hours. Then I'd left before sunrise. I had never seen the place in daylight. 9 years later, I'd pulled off the same highway, taken the same exit, walked into the same motel, and remembered none of it. That night, room 17 was waiting with the door completely open. Inside was another motel room. Not my childhood bedroom, not my mother's kitchen. A motel room. Same bedspread as 16, same lamp, same picture of the mesa above the bed. My old green duffel bag was sitting on the mattress. The zipper pull had broken years ago, so I'd replaced it with a paper clip. The paper clip was there. The television was on with the sound muted. There was a telephone on the nightstand. I walked inside. It was the first time I'd actually crossed the doorway. I don't think I was brave. I think I was tired of pretending. I started looking for the mistake. That had become the rule. Every room contained one thing that was wrong. Find the wrong thing. I checked the bag, right bag, the bedspread, the lamp, the chain on the door, the ashtray, the phone book in the drawer. There was even a cigarette burn on the nightstand. I went around the room twice, then a third time. Nothing was wrong. That scared me more than anything else had. Because standing there, in a room that was completely accurate, I finally understood what the other rooms had been showing me. The telephone in my childhood bedroom wasn't wrong. The fifth chair wasn't wrong. Those weren't mistakes. They were corrections. Every time room 17 gave me one of those places back, it restored one thing I'd removed. And every correction pointed toward the same place. The telephone in my bedroom. The chair beneath the kitchen phone. The notepad. Me. Always being the person who answered. You can't remove one memory cleanly. That's what I understand now. Memories have roots. If you want one thing gone badly enough, you have to remove everything connected to it. I'd taken the phone out of my bedroom. I'd taken the chair out of the kitchen. I'd taken the notepad off the counter. And for 9 years, I'd walked around inside a version of my mother's house where none of those things existed. I never noticed, because who inventories the phones in a house that's gone? The telephone beside the motel bed rang. An old mechanical bell. Sharp, metallic. There is no modern ringtone that sounds like it. My hand was already moving before I thought about it. I picked it up on the first ring. Of course I did. At first, all I heard was an ice machine. Grinding. Then the hard clatter of ice dropping into the tray. There was an ice machine at the far end of the silver spur. I'd heard it every night. Now I understood why the sound at Ray's desk had hit me so hard. Then my mother spoke. "Danny?" I couldn't breathe. "It's me. I know it's late." I hadn't heard her voice in 9 years. I didn't have recordings. No old voicemail. Nothing. I'd tried to remember her voice before. I could remember things she said. I couldn't remember the sound anymore. Nobody tells you that can happen. The voice goes. And suddenly there she was. Tired. Quiet. Almost apologizing for calling. Exactly like her. Then I heard another voice. Mine. Younger. Sleepy. Annoyed. Not cruel. That's important. I wish it had been cruel. Cruel would have given me something obvious to hate. Instead, I just sounded tired. The way people sometimes sound when they believe there will always be another conversation. I heard myself say, "Mom, I'm driving all day tomorrow. I'll be there by noon. Get some sleep." Then I heard the click. I'd hung up. 14 words. I counted them later at a rest stop. 14. That's what I'd forgotten. Not her death, not the drive, not even the motel. The call. She had called me at 1:40 in the morning. She wasn't asking for a ride. She wasn't giving me an emergency. She was scared. And when my mother was scared, She called the kid who always answered the phone.
I answered. Then I told her I'd see her tomorrow, and I told her to get some sleep. 4 hours later, she was gone. By the time I reached my sister, I had already started changing the story. Before anybody could get there, that was easier. It turned something I had done into something that had happened to me. For years, I thought my regret was that I never got to say goodbye. That wasn't true. I'd had the chance. I just didn't know it was the last one. And apparently my mind decided I couldn't live with that. So it removed the call. Then it removed everything that could lead me back to it. I never lied to Rachel. I never lied to friends. That's almost worse. I believed myself.
I sat on the edge of that motel bed, holding the phone after the recording ended. There was a dial tone for a few seconds. Then even that stopped. And I realized something. I wasn't afraid of hearing my mother's voice. Her voice was the best thing that had happened to me in 9 years. I was afraid of mine. I sat there until the room began to disappear. I don't know how else to describe it. Nothing melted, nothing moved. The light simply became weaker, the way a photograph fades when you lower the brightness. The bed, the walls, my duffel bag, the telephone in my hand. And just before everything went dark, the telephone started ringing again. I didn't answer. Not because I was afraid, because somehow I knew that call wasn't for me. I still don't know who it was for. By morning, there were 4 doors again. 14, 15, 16, 18. Ray asked if I wanted a receipt. I said no. Then I changed my mind and said yes. I still have it. It says room 16. That's all. It doesn't prove anything. I drove to Rachel's. 19 hours. I split it across 2 days. When I got there, we sat at her kitchen table. I told her everything. Not just room 17, the call, the 14 words. When I finished, Rachel didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said, "Danny, I know." I asked what she meant. She said I'd told her about the call that morning, 9 years ago. I'd called her from the road after Mom died. I'd told her Mom had called during the night. I'd told her I'd said I'd be there by noon. Rachel remembered the whole conversation. Then she said something that still bothers me. "You've never mentioned it since. I thought that was on purpose." So the memory hadn't disappeared from the world, only from me. Everybody else had just been polite enough not to put it back. I don't know what room 17 was. I don't think I want to. I've looked up the Silver Spur. I've looked through property records. I've searched for stories about missing rooms, people dying there, fires, murders, anything that would turn what happened into the kind of story where you can point to a reason. I found nothing useful. Maybe that's better, because I don't think room 17 was interested in the motel. I think it was interested in what I'd removed. I don't stay in motels with exterior doors anymore. I'll drive another hour for a place with an interior hallway, an elevator, and a lobby with bad coffee. I can't sleep with somebody else's television coming through a wall. If I hear a shower running in the next room, I lie awake until it stops. And I answer every phone call. First ring. Always. My friends think it's a joke. Rachel sometimes calls late just to see how quickly I'll pick up. Spam calls, wrong numbers, people trying to sell me things. Doesn't matter. Somebody might need something. There's another habit too. Smaller. I can't hang up first. I haven't told many people that. At the end of a call, when you've both already said goodbye, there's usually that little pause. Okay, talk soon. Love you. Bye. Then somebody presses the button. I don't. I'll sit there with the phone against my ear. 5 seconds. 10. However long it takes. I wait for the other person to end it. Because I don't know which conversation is the last one anymore. Most of the time, that's all it is. Just silence. Then they hang up. Once in a while, though, there's a pause before the line disconnects. 1 second, maybe 2. The kind of delay you'd blame on the connection. And in that little gap, underneath everything else, I can sometimes hear an ice machine